How's it going, everyone? It's Zain Bando here, back with another edition of Bando's Breakdown to episode 17. Thank you again for tuning in. Very excited to do this as we are slowly but surely approaching the midway point in the month of August. So, thank you again to those who have checked out my work thus far on the show, as well as pretty much all of my other content that I have going on, whether it's the stuff here, whether it's the stuff with MMA Knockout, whether it's the stuff with the MMA Outsiders, whether it's the stuff with the sporting news, so on and so forth. Thank you again. Very, very much appreciate all of your guys' support. Just wanted to get a few quick nuggets and notes out of the way. Be sure to like and subscribe to the to the Bench Podcast Network YouTube channel. This is very important. You can go to youtube.com/ETB Network. We are slowly but surely approaching 1,000 subscribers. So every single like, share, retweet, whatever you want to call it, helps out the algorithm tremendously, including this show and all the other shows across the network. Again, it would be very appreciated if you showed your support. Again, and you could check out my work on all of those places as I just mentioned. You can also listen to Bander's Breakdown to wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. And again, just as a heads up, this is not going to be a regular thing. This is obviously airing on a different date due to some scheduling shifts within the network. So again, at the time that this is airing, it is Tuesday, August 13th, not your traditional Wednesday. We're going to go back to that with episode 18 and episodes moving forward. So thank you again for bearing with me on that front. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Again, we have a whole lot to get to today, but before we do, just wanted to give a quick shout out to our friends at Playback. So without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live streaming schedule. All right. With all that being said, again, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a pretty decently packed show today. It's going to be the same run through as you guys are used to. There's obviously just going to be different topics, of course. So, getting into the introduction, some of the things we're going to be discussing today, we're going to be talking about a recent parade that I went to involving a UFC champion. We're going to be going over the Bears recap win over the Bills. Huge, huge win there, nearly won by shutout in Buffalo. They come home to play the Bengals, their first home preseason game. Caleb Williams' first time stepping onto the Soldier Field turf, so that'll be fun. We'll briefly preview UFC 305. You're going to get more of an analysis on the next edition of the MMA Outsiders, as well as the next edition of Fight Study, which is more than likely going to be on Thursday. That's also going to be on Playback. We're also going to be talking about some other news notes and nuggets, including Team USA winning gold on the men's side as well. So much to talk about, so little time. So let's jump right into it with Zan's overview. So beginning with that exact parade that I went to. So as we all know, welterweight champion Belal Muhammad, the first Palestinian American UFC champion to win a title, first champion from literal Chicago, had his meet and greet, parade and rally celebration yesterday, or excuse me, on Sunday at the time that this is airing. This took place on Sunday. Huge, huge turnout, a bigger turnout than I expected. A lot of people were there to support him. Very, very cool. We get to hear from him. We got to hear from Lewis Taylor, who's been a huge part of his training regimen. We got to hear from people within the Bogan and Chicago community. So very, very cool. And got to hear from a couple of other people as well. Very, very good victory parade. A lot more about activism than actual fighting, but still very cool to see Belal Muhammad get his spotlight with the championship belt as well. And from then on, I mean, he obviously went into just thanking a lot of people, and he also went ahead. Um, he also he also went ahead and he also went ahead and just made sure to thank everyone that had supported him through this journey, through earning the UFC welterweight championship. and obviously just going back through and just making sure that everybody was accounted for. Did not hint at whether or not his next fight would be Shavkat Rakhmonov, or if it would be somebody else, or even remotely a timeline for when he would return to the octagon. But still, a very cool experience. Going to get into more why a potential location a sense for him later on in the show, and I may have already hinted at it, but it's cool. First ever champion from this area, and the reason why I don't count Matt Hughes is because he's from Southern Illinois and he's from Hillsborough, Illinois. So, a lot of exciting stuff there. It's good to see another Chicago athlete win a world title that isn't in a major sport, and hopefully it's the first of many rallies and parades to come. You can check out all the videos and pictures. I tweeted them on my X account. They seem to be doing well. Championship rounds, the very prominent X account that covers a lot of news and everything else. Was nice of them to pick up some of my work, so shout out to them as well. And thanks to all those guys for what they do and making sure that they post news and they credit the proper sources. That's always a very important thing in this day and age, especially in the business that I am in. A lot of people try to, pass stuff on as their own, but Championship Rounds does not do that. So very, very grateful for them and making sure that they used my content accordingly. So thank you again for that. Well, I need to quickly transition though. That was a lot of exciting stuff. But wanted to move into Team USA men's basketball winning the gold medal. This was a great game. They played exceptionally well. Steph Curry balled out. This team was awesome. I mean, they were fun to watch this entire journey. This France team was good. They weren't going away quietly either, but Team USA just had too much firepower, too much depth, and from behind the three, arc, and just too much overall offensive athleticism. It was awesome. And it was um and it was really really cool. Um and it was really cool. What was even cooler about it though was that I think just the celebration at the end, at the at the end was very prominent. I mean, seeing their pride holding the American flag, and seeing how happy all those guys were was just something that I think a lot of people who were either in Paris or who were watching it on TV or who were watching it with us over on Playback. Shout out to the people who did, and if you haven't, you really missed out. Um, I just feel like overall it was a fun it was a fun journey seeing them win that championship. And what was even cooler about it too is for some of them it's going to be their last Olympics. For LeBron James, it's his last Olympics. But for someone who or for someone where it was his first, in Victor Wembanyama, he's going to be back for sure. He's a bright young superstar in the business. And overall, I just feel like it was a fun team to watch. And even if you weren't a basketball fan, just to see the pride in our country, seeing them win, that was cool. And hopefully it's a springboard to what will be a fun 2024 NBA season. A lot more basketball content to come here on this show and on other shows across the network. But overall, nice to see Team US get it done. Huge win over France, and they overcame obstacles, man. What more can I say? Moving right along, though, had some more fun stuff in the pipeline, but we had a bit of a downer this past weekend. We had UFC Vegas 95 at the Apex. Not the greatest card in the world. I went 5-5 on predictions, and but what was even the bigger story was that the UFC Apex is going to go under construction, and I think this is a very important story that's not being covered. And overall, I just think this is a huge deal. It's a huge deal in the fact that the Apex has been a staple, ever since the bulk of COVID. They obviously, they do a lot of stuff in regards to Dana White Contender Series. That's obviously starting tonight, as we know, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to briefly get into those fights here in a little bit, but seeing the Apex go under construction is very, very critical, because there have been tons of fans online and in the MMA community that have been relatively pissed off that overall the Apex experience for some just hasn't been good. I mean, it costs thousands of dollars to go to an event. You either have to pay thousands of dollars to go to an event, be a member of the media, or be part of one of the fighters' families. But one of the but one of the but one of the downsides of it though overall is that there's not going to be a hub anymore. That's sort of the downside as to what I wanted to get to. There's not going to be a hub anymore where it's going to be a controlled environment where the UFC makes sure that the in-house production is good. They're going to have to go to various places like a St. Louis, like a Louisville, like an Atlantic City to potentially make up for this. Or, as I was talking about off the air with my producer behind the scenes, you could very well see a scenario where the UFC goes to Virgin Hotels. Yes, they've done one fight night event there, but it seemed to be pretty successful, had an Apex like feel. And overall, what I don't seem to understand from this whole thing is why this should be considered a good thing, because knowing the UFC and knowing how many fight night events they put on per year, and I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you gotta question where fans' heads are at. I mean, if people don't like Apex cards, and I'm not one to sit here and praise them, but if people don't like Apex cards, they didn't have to watch UFC Vegas 95. They didn't have to watch all the other Apex shows that took place earlier in the year or whatever. So, I don't really understand where some people are coming from as to if this is necessarily a bad thing. The most important thing I haven't mentioned though is they're making a $25 million renovation, and that's no easy thing. They're not just floating money around saying, "Oh, this is what we're going to do." They've really strategically thought this out. They know that the Apex is going to be in their long term plans, but it's going to be but it's gonna be but it's gonna be what it's gonna be what the UFC wants, needs, and deserves, and they feel that this is a place where they can do tons of content, including the Ultimate Fighter, including the Contender Series. So I take this more as a good thing. The UFC has a chance to go to locations that have different types of fan bases, as I was alluding to before, like St. Louis, like in Atlantic City. But and this also allows the UFC to maybe think a little bit more strategically and put on less events. So this is going to be an interesting development. Again, November to June 2025. It's not confirmed, but November 9th would be UFC Vegas 100. And if that does occur, then we're in for a lull when it comes to fight nights. So just keep that in mind. Again, it'll be interesting to see the last several weeks of the Apex as we know it for the time being, and so on and so forth. So now we're going to move on. We're going to shift gears a little bit. It's sort of away from this. We're still going to stick with the Apex, but we're going to talk about Dana White Contender Series. So as some of you guys know who are in the hardcore MMA fan niche, you know that the next 10 weeks, the next 10 Tuesdays are going to be consumed with Dana White Contender Series. A lot of exciting prospects to go through. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are some high level guys on this event. And for those of you who've never seen it, it's 5 fights, super fast paced. You maybe get 1 to 2 contract winners on the night, and it is what it is. You either get signed or you don't. It's not like the Ultimate Fighter where you're going through multiple weeks and you have to live in a house. It's a one shot, one time thing. Sometimes if you put on the best fight possible, it could be 1 or 2. But just to go through some of the news and notes regarding who's going to be on the card, I'm just going to tell you who's going to be fighting. There's been some changes, just so you guys know. In season 7 last year, we had 46 contracts given out. So the main event is Mansour Abdul Malik versus Wes Schultz at welterweight. We've got Ming Ding versus Rami Ahmed. Rami Ahmed was a late replacement. Mikhail Shashinami versus Bruno Lopez. That's at welterweight. Forgot to mention that the Dang fight is also at welterweight. Jose Delgado versus Ernie Juarez. That's also another weight replacement fight. And then opening the card, Loner Kavanaugh versus Antoine Ho. Again, a lot of exciting prospects on this card. You can actually check out my MMA Outsiders executive producer, Pat Dana. He's been doing scouting reports on all of these guys. So I don't want to I don't want to really butcher anything. I'm not gonna go too deep into this. You'll see my predictions probably later today on who I think is gonna win some of these fights. But overall though, if you wanna look at prospect wizards, you go to a guy like him or you go to a guy like Sean Bitter. I'm certainly not the guy for it. I'm just excited to see who makes it to the UFC. And I can already pinpoint a couple of possibilities. Kavanaugh being one of them, Malik being another, and potentially Lopez. So a lot of exciting prospects on this card. Again, every single Tuesday for the next 10 weeks. Dana White Contender Series at the Apex. Should be a great time. Again, Season 7, 46 contracts were handed out. And just to give you some context, there have been 2 champions to come off this show. One is now a former champion, but in Season 1, Sean O'Malley. And then, of course, in Season 3, Jamal Hill, who is working his way back to potentially becoming the UFC light heavyweight champion. So that's Dana White Contender Series in a nutshell. We're going to move right along. We're going to kind of stick with some similar themes here. We're going to move from Las Vegas to Perth, Western Australia, UFC 305 middleweight championship on the line. Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. Let's pull out the old Tapology machine and let me go through some statistics for all of you guys. Again, I have not given my predictions yet for this fight. We're going to do so in just a couple minutes, but wanted to break this fight down for you guys. Dricus du Plessis currently sitting at 21-2 in mixed martial arts, has won his last 5 in a row. Currently sitting at as a plus 110 underdog according to Tapology, but is near even according to the betting line. Is from South Africa, 30 years old, 6'1", 76-inch reach, looking over at Israel Adesanya. He is currently sitting at 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He is at a minus 135 favorite. And obviously is the challenger looking to get his belt back. 6'4", 80-inch reach. Trains out of City Kickboxing. Dricus du Plessis trains out of Team CIT. And this fight has been brewing for quite some time. I don't need to really get into the political racial tensions of the fight, but if you know the backstory between these two, you know there's a lot of hatred. There's been the insults about who's the real African champion, et cetera, et cetera. And there's also been, a lot of stipulations as to whoever wins this fight is going to be the best middleweight in the world. So just something to keep in mind there. And something else to keep in mind too, that this could arguably be the biggest fight in Australian MMA history. And something else to keep in mind on top of this fight too is that the winner of this fight is going to have bragging rights. It's clear that these two don't like each other. It's clear that there's a lot of animosity, and it's also clear that the fans are excited. This summer was supposed to be a summer of to put it lightly, badass fights. We didn't get McGregor Chandler. Even though I did speak about him earlier in the episode, Belal Muhammad's performance, in my opinion, while he did win, was a bit underwhelming. So to say that fight delivered would sort of be on the contrary there. But this is the fight that I think people are excited about. They know what the stakes are. This is potentially Adesanya's last chance at regaining his middleweight title. He's had his struggles. He took almost a year off. Dricus du Plessis has stayed active. Won the middleweight title over Sean Strickland, which is obviously not an easy thing to do. A lot of people thought that Sean Strickland won that fight. Dricus du Plessis was able to win in Canada. And, now he's the middleweight champion, and this rivalry can finally be renewed. At one point, it looked like this fight was not going to happen just because of stipulations and because of the UFC, kind of forcing their own hand and having Strickland fight Adesanya instead of waiting for DDP to get healthy. That's more on them than anybody else. But in the grand scheme of things, though, we have the fight. I'm picking Israel Adesanya to win. Second round TKO. I agree with Alexander Volkanovski. He made it very clear on his YouTube channel when he broke down this fight that Adesanya is not going to make the same mistakes twice. Du Plessis is awkward, as he alluded to, but he's someone who is susceptible to, to getting caught. he wasn't necessarily hurt against Strickland, but he was put in some precarious positions in that fight, which could have swayed the judges one way or another. And I think Adesanya has a better striking base than DDP does. And if this fight doesn't get taken to the ground, I think we're in for a short night. So I'm taking Adesanya to win in this fight by KO. Should be a very, very exciting fight again. Perth, Western Australia is the backdrop for this one. Again, it's UFC 305. You can pick it up on pay-per-view. We have a total of 12 fights on this card from the RAC Arena. Some other notable fights: Kai Kara France versus Steve Erceg in flyweight action. Batuz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker, a potentially huge fight at 155. Tai Tuivasa versus Biggie Boy. Jairzinho Rosenstruck. Jing Liang versus Carlos Paredes. Junior Taffa versus Walter Walker, which is the main event of the prelims. That should be entertaining. There's a lot of good fights on this card. So overall, it should be a good one. Again, you can pick it up on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. And for those of you who missed it, you could have saved $10 on the pay-per-view if you bought it. If you bought it yesterday, but if you didn't, you'll be so out of luck and you'll have to pay the full pay-per-view price. So looking forward to UFC 305. Again, you can get further analysis on this card from myself and my producer, Tom Albano, on the newest edition of the MMA Outsiders. So should be a very, very exciting card, and I'm looking forward to watching it, seeing how it plays out, and we will go from there. Going to transition over to the NFL, though. Bears and Bills, brief recap here, 33-6 on the win there for the Bears. Caleb Williams looked good, and although he didn't have any flashy highlight plays, he did what he was supposed to do. Again, it was his first true preseason game. He did not play in the win against the Texans. I thought he looked good. I thought he looked the way that the Bears were excited to see him look. I think it's one of those things where I think it's one of those things where NFL fans like to overreact. Um, and I just think I just think overall though, when you look at when you look at the Bears and the rebuild that they're trying to have, is something that I think people need to take a slow roll at. You know, this is one of those things where I think people don't fully recognize the impact that their emotions have over one game. Caleb Williams is not going to be perfect game one, and he certainly was not perfect game one. The Bears look good; they won the game, but that doesn't always mean the quarterback is going to look perfect. So this is going to be a work in progress. They won the game. Obviously, he had some really nice throws, and it's going to take him some time to develop. And I think that doing it against the Bills team that is still trying to pick up the pieces from last year, and them underachieving. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what this Bills team looks like too going forward. But the Bears being 2-0 in the preseason is awesome, and just happy for Caleb Williams and all those guys to show out and see that they played really well. So very, 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 very exciting stuff there. And I was just happy to see the Bears get the win. I do also think, moving right along, too, that this Bears-Bengals matchup is going to be exciting. We got Joe Burrow coming back 100%. Potentially a Super Bowl preview in the next few years. This should be a great atmosphere at Soldier Field. Seeing Joe Burrow come to Chicago, he's super loved wherever he goes, and to see his athleticism versus Caleb Williams' athleticism is going to be fun. I expect a high-scoring affair no matter how long it lasts. I do think it's only going to be a couple of series for both guys, though, because they don't want to risk injury or anything. So give me the Bears to win this game 24-21. I think it'll be an absolute slugfest. And I just think this Bengals team will be ready to play, and they'll have and they'll have I think a lot of energy behind them, knowing that the Bears are the team with all the hype, and I think it should be interesting to see what Caleb Williams is going to do moving forward, considering that the Bears only have a couple of assuming that the Bears only have a couple of weeks until the regular season begins and they play the Titans. And yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. But I am picking the Bears. I think that the slight home field advantage is going to help. And even though Joe Burrow is a well experienced quarterback, I think the Bears young defensive presence does just enough to win the game. It'll be a good game again, no matter how long it lasts. But I like the Bears here, 24-21 as the final score there. Going to be transitioning over now to boxing. Jake Paul did a recent interview with his betting company Better about potential next moves, and one of them was potentially participating in the 2028 Summer Olympics. Um, I love to see it, and I'm the biggest retractor of Jake Paul, not the biggest fan of him. Um, and I just think I just think with him though, with him, I think when it comes to his overall presence and psyche, I think he would be great for the Olympics if boxing does occur in 28. I think he has a charismatic personality. I think it would get people behind Team USA, whether you like him or hate him. And I think people would tune into his interviews. And I think that's one of the things that people don't seem to understand is that he is a showman, and him going into the Olympics as a showman would be a very, very interesting feat, just considering what he's been able to do in boxing so far. And it's clear he said he's sick and tired of the inconsistencies of Team USA. I don't blame him one bit. And I also think too that anyone that doesn't like him could end up finding a newfound respect for him if he can go out and do his thing there. So 2028 again would be interesting to see him compete in a boxing ring. Would he win a gold medal? I don't know about that, but I do think he could add some flair to Team USA. Um, just moving forward and just kind of getting back into the proverbial flow of things and trying to be the best boxer he can before he decides to retire. I think would be very, very interesting. So I am for this, even though I am not the biggest Jake Paul fan by any means. I think he has a point in trying to compete, but I also think too there are going to be the people that don't like him and don't think he's all that, and that's going to be your choice in the next few years. But maybe, just maybe, we will see him compete. So we'll see. All right, going to be moving right along though to the way too early Big Ten football games to watch. Don't have too much on this yet, just considering that the official it's just considering that at the time that we're recording this, the official top 25 rankings are not fully set in stone from what I understand, but I'm just going to quickly verify that. Okay, yeah. So at the time that we're recording this, as of 18 minutes ago, the Associated Press has released the official top 25 AP poll, which is very exciting. And considering that this is the Big Ten that we're talking about, I am going to go over the teams from the Big Ten that are in the Associated Press top 25, which is very exciting that we're getting so close to college football officially coming back. So at number 2, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes. They got 15 votes from the AP to be at number 2. We got the number 3 Oregon Ducks. That could be a potential for the Big Ten championship game. So that's a potential game to watch. They also play each other during the regular season. So that'll be exciting. Just skipping over here. Texas and Alabama are 4 and 5. Just for some context, Ole Miss at number 6, Notre Dame at number 7. We got Penn State at number 8. Huge, huge year for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions. Still looking for the same sustained success they had in 2016 when they made it to the Big Ten championship game. They just haven't gotten over the hump to beat Ohio State just yet, but that remains to be seen. The defending national champion, Michigan Wolverines, that'll be very exciting to see what they do without Jim Harbaugh and with all the other stuff going on in regards to NCAA sanctions. Number 10 is Florida State. Number 11 is Missouri. Number 12 is Utah. Number 13 is LSU. Number 14 is Clemson. Number 15 is Tennessee. 16 is Oklahoma. 17 is OK State. 18 is Kansas State. 19 is Miami. And hang on. Yeah, 19 is Miami. And then 20 is Texas A&M, 21 is Arizona State, 22 is the Kansas Jayhawks, 23 is another Big Ten participant in the USC Trojans, 24 is NC State, 25 is Iowa State. I'm going to do a bit of a long YouTube short, if you will, on this regarding what I think the committee did right with these rankings, and or excuse me, what I feel the AP voters did right with these rankings and what they didn't. But clearly, given that Iowa has quarterback issues, I don't know if I fully agree with them at number 25. But overall, solid rankings. Nice to see a lot of Big Ten representation. But the biggest way too early game to watch is going to be Oregon versus Ohio State. That'll be a big one, as well as Ohio State versus Michigan and so much more. We're going to get more into this, though, as we get into, obviously, Forever Power 5. And then as closer as we get to college football season, I'll be diving into these a whole lot more. So a lot of exciting stuff there on the college football front. Just wanted to quickly get into Zain Zinger. I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. I have been lucky enough to go to every single UFC Chicago-based event except for in 2016 when Holly Holm fought Valentina Shevchenko. I think that with Belal Muhammad as the UFC welterweight champion, the UFC has to they gotta give it up. They gotta come back to Chicago. I understand the political ideals here may not be in the same realm as what Dana White supports, but you have a Chicago-based champion. There's no reason why you can't capitalize on him. Is he the most exciting fighter in the world? No, we already know that. But can he draw fans and can he draw eyeballs? I saw it with my own two eyes. Hundreds and hundreds of people showed up for Belal Muhammad at his rally and victory parade. That is easier said than done. You could have had potentially nobody there if nobody knew who he was, but it's clear he has a fan base. People would come out for him. He just needs the right fight, in my opinion. And even though he's going to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov next, most likely, the most logical fight to do if he were to come back to Chicago would be Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad, the rematch for all the marbles once and for all. Would love to see it. I would be there for it. And I think the UFC needs to get behind putting their champions in their hometown. It's as simple as that. This is another example that you could say what you want about Belal Muhammad, but there's no one who's been more deserving to headline in his hometown than him because he keeps clamoring for it. He loves his city. He loves his people, and there's no reason why it can't be done. Again, you just need the right fight to make it happen. It's got to happen in either 2025 or 2026. I'm going to keep saying it until the cows come home. The UFC in Chicago sells. Just look no further than UFC 238 and 225. Two of the best recent Midwest cards in all of combat sports. And I was at both of them. UFC 225 had the best middleweight title fight I've ever seen. UFC 238 at Henry Cejudo's first retirement. You can't get any more drama filled than Chicago in June when it comes to storylines like that, and his is another unique one. So the UFC should pull the trigger. They should 100% pull the trigger. It needs to happen, and I would love to see it. So hopefully the UFC can get it done at some point. All right, now we're going to move briefly into Zan's look ahead here. We got over-under predictions for the NFC West. Going to keep this very brief here. I love the 49ers to win the division. Again, we're going to take the over there. I like Seattle to come in second. We're going to take the over on their win total. We're going to go with the Arizona Cardinals in third. And then we're going to go with the Los Angeles Rams in fourth. I just think that the Cardinals are going to be much improved. Kyler Murray is going to be 100%. San Francisco is a juggernaut. Seattle is still learning how to win, but they have an exciting defense. Not the most flashy team in the division, but overall, though, the 49ers to me are the clear over favorite here. If I like any of these over favorites, I'm picking the 49ers to win the West. And whatever over total in any book, just take the over. Keeping it as simple as that. We're going to keep getting more into over under predictions and whatnot as we get further along and as we get closer to the NFL season. Just finally wrapping up here with the NFL preseason slate here. Just wanted to go in and give you all the happenings for all the games that are coming up this week. So just briefly here, we've got week 3 of 4. We got the Eagles and the Patriots at 7 p.m. Eastern. We got the Bengals and the Bears at 1 p.m. Eastern. That's on Saturday. The other Saturday early game is Atlanta and the Ravens. That's at noon Eastern. Detroit and Kansas City at 4 Eastern. Minnesota and the Browns at 4:25 Eastern. We have Seattle and the Titans. That's at 7 Eastern. Bills and the Steelers at 7 Eastern. This is also on Saturday. Jets and the Panthers at 7 Eastern. Commanders and the Dolphins at 7 Eastern. Cardinals and the Colts at 7 Eastern. Rams and the Chargers at 7 Eastern. Buccaneers and the Jaguars at 7:30 Eastern. Dallas and the Raiders in the late nightcap game. That'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern. Green Bay and Denver. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, San Francisco and New Orleans. That'll be at 8 o'clock. Oh, and just to give you some context of the times I was going off of Earth Central, so I had to convert those. But that is week 3 in a nutshell. So with all that being said, we're just going to quickly wrap it up here. I don't believe I had any errors this week, which is obviously a good thing. That's what we want. Just wanted to thank all of you guys for tuning into another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. Really, really appreciate it. Sorry if it seemed a little bit rushed today. That's my apologies. We're gonna do a little bit better on that in the future. But thank you again for tuning in. This was a fun show again. Bando's Breakdowns presented by Playback. Again, this is a special edition of the show. It's airing on Tuesday this week instead of Wednesday. And again, presented by Playback. Go to our community, playback.tv/ETV network. Would be greatly appreciated if all of you can continue to support us, the network, and everything that we have going on. Again, thank you so much for any support that you can give, as it helps the algorithm grow and so much more. So with that being said, for everyone behind the scenes, for everyone at the network, I'm Zain Bando. This has been episode 17 of Bando's Breakdowns. I will see you all next week for another fun-filled show as we get closer and closer to officially football season. Should be very exciting, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.